So welcome to Farm Stay Startup. This is the first of our Farm Stay USA webinar series. I'm really glad that you have joined us here. And I expect a few other participants will join us along the way in case they're having troubles signing up with Zoom for the very first time. I thought I would go over just a little bit of housekeeping. So this is me. My name is Scotty Jones, and I run the U.S. Farm Stay Association. I'm also a farmer. That's my donkey, Paco. So in this program, Zoom allows you the opportunity to interact with us via chat and questions and answers. We will be muting all the microphones other than mine to keep this simple. Kate is on chat right now, probably typing with you. She can answer any tech questions you may have. The Q&A that you will see on the bar is for questions to be answered at the end of the presentation. This is an actual paper toolkit that I have available on the Farm Stay USA website. It's in the Farmer's Guide. We like you to sign up with us as a farmer for access to everything that we have in our business guide, but you don't need to pay for membership, and you don't actually need to have a farm stay started yet. There will also be a link to all the webinars that are going to be posted on the Farm Stay USA website in the Farmer's Guide as well. So with that, my background is that I am actually the co-owner of Leaping Lamb Farm and Farm Stay in Alsea, Oregon. We bought our farm in 2003, and I opened our farm stay in 2006. I'm also the founder and executive director for the U.S. Farm Stay Association, which we belovingly call Farm Stay USA. I launched this site in 2010 as farmstayus.com, and then converted to a nonprofit trade association, 501c6, in 2014. So we are now farmstayusa.org, but we've kept the farmstayus.com as our main URL so that we don't lose any of our Google juice. This is basically what we're going to go over for the toolkit. And the toolkit is an actual, as I said, paper product. So this will be kind of a high level of what is in it. This is applicable to all agritourism ventures, but it is farm stay focused. And I'm going to go over everything from regulations, permits, licenses that you need to consider, legal and insurance, lodging, infrastructure, other activities you might do on your property with your guests, who's going to be responsible for this, marketing, competition, financials. And when you get to the end of it, there's usually a reality check. Is this a good idea? Is this the right time to do this? Is this something that you think would drive the business of your farm further? If you come up with the idea of no at the end of this, that's fine. What you're really doing is a business plan here, and so I'm just giving you the outline to get that business plan done, because when people say business plan, it's hard to start. What I thought I would do, though, at the very beginning here is to mention that farm and ranch days come in many different forms, and it's whatever we do on our own farms that we excel at, that we want to offer, that we can offer. This is actually my farm here in Oregon, but you might have a much larger operation. You might have a cattle operation, you might have a hay operation. This is one of our ranch members in Nebraska. Or you might offer lots of different kinds of lodging on a very diversified farm. This is a farm down in Southern Oregon that not only sells at the farmer's market, but offers lodging in everything from a private house to an apartment attached to their farmhouse, to camping, to glamping. Maybe not doing a lot of livestock, you are a large production farm as well. This farm in California has been offering lodging to families for years. They have 19 cabins that they incorporate into their farm. Or maybe you want to do glamping and you have the idea for a teepee or a platform tent or a yurt. Here's a farm in upstate New York that also offers you lodging in their carriage house. This farm right here is in Washington. These were chefs that decided to build a new farmhouse. They offer lodging in their farmhouse, and they also offer cooking classes. Or if you're talking about cooking in Michigan, this woman redid her old farmhouse. She uses a wood stove. She teaches people how to cook on a wood stove and has cooking classes, but also dinners that she does in her farm. Or maybe you have baby goats and you have a big goat cheese business. This is an Airstream down also in Oregon. So it shows the different kinds of lodging that you can offer to guests. A ranch. This ranch up in Montana, you actually go on cattle drives and help them move their cattle from pasture to pasture. Or you might have a winery. And this ranch in California actually raises racehorses that they run down the aisles of their vineyards for practice. Okay, so we all have different motivations for why we might want to start a farm or a ranch day. We did a survey, and quite obviously 92% of our respondents said that it was for financial reasons, and many of us want to diversify our income streams because farming and ranching is a risky business. And this is a different kind of business. We're not going anywhere anyway. Now, I did allow the respondents to answer multiple reasons that they are motivated to do their accommodations. So educational was another large category. People were very interested in being able to show guests what they do on their farms and ranches. And also meeting people from all over the world. These were the top 3 answers for why people do farm and ranch days and what they get out of it as well personally. And my feeling is that it's our connection with each other, using the term farm stay, that gives us a voice as a new travel niche for the US. You know, in Europe, farm stays have been going for a long time. And it's an accommodation that people look for the weekends. In the US, we've really only started in the late 90s on the East Coast and really into starting in around 2010, coming up the West Coast. And if you look at this map, these are our farm stay members right now. There's a dearth of farm stays in the middle of the United States where there are much more larger commercial farms. So we kind of hug the coast, and this is also where some of the largest urban outlets are for where we get our guests. Okay, let's get started with this farm stay toolkit now. Starting with regulations, permits, and licenses, I start here because you might be imagining what kind of lodging you want, but you need to be finding out from your usually county planning department and your zoning whether you're actually even allowed to host guests on your farm. In Oregon, it is very sticky in terms of what you are and are not allowed to do on farmland, and it is similar in other states. Some states you're allowed to do anything you want, but this would be a place to start because having all these dreams doesn't do you any good if you're not allowed to offer lodging. I would also say, as tip number 1, you need to talk to your neighbors before you talk to your planning department and let them know what you're thinking of doing. Because generally, if you do need a conditional use permit to offer lodging, your neighbors are notified and they can take your idea before it ever gets off the ground. This is also a good rule, even when you're up and running with your business, to make sure that your neighbors know what you're doing so that you're not impacting their business, which may be more commercial farming next to you. The next place to also check is going to be with your county building department. Yes, you've got a really cool old chicken coop, and wouldn't that make great lodging, but you may find out that an ag building cannot be converted into lodging for people. And you want to find out what's going to be involved. Is your road appropriate to be bringing people up? What are you going to have to do for septic? What are you going to have to do for water? So those are the first two departments that you really need to go and talk with and find out what kind of regulations are you going to have to fall into, and are you going to be able to. In terms of a license, a fictitious name registration with your state, this is something you may already have as a working farm or ranch, but you may not. And it's called a DBA, doing business as. So you want to register your farm or ranch, and it's not usually very expensive, but it's something that you need to do annually. In terms of licenses, for sure you may need a business license depending on if you are in an incorporated area. You may need a sales license if you are selling things. Oregon doesn't have sales tax, so we don't have to be signed up with a sales license. But we do have a lodging tax license, and many states do, and a lot of that lodging tax, it's a flow through. You collect it from your guests, but you pay it back to your state or your county or your city or all of them. It just depends. And I would suggest asking your local B&Bs about this if you have any questions about what kind of taxes you're responsible for. What are they paying? What do they have licenses for? And in terms of permits, you do need to be checking with your public health and environment department. These are called different names in different states, but basically water and sewer, signs and road access, fire and safety. And then if you are offering opportunities on your farm, fishing or hunting, do your guests need licenses? I would assume they do. Also special use, are you allowing them to go off onto some federal lands that are near you? Your small business development center, most states have these. They're related to the Small Business Administration. Often will have a full list of the places you need to go to look for permits and licenses. So I would recommend certainly going in and talking with them when you get partway into your business plan. Legal and insurance. You may already be set up in a business entity, but if you are not, you probably need to schedule an appointment with a lawyer to find out what kind of business entity would be most appropriate. And an entity is something like a sole proprietorship, a partnership, an LLC. A lot of times this does help with your limiting your liability, how you set up your farm. This terms and conditions and release from liability waivers, I have examples of these in the actual toolkit, but it's something that you want to float in front of your lawyer to make sure that you have everything covered. Terms and conditions would be things like who do you allow on your property, when can you kick them off, what happens if people cancel reservations with you. And that release from liability waiver is something that every lawyer wants you to have every person who ever walks onto your property sign, just to release you from any liability in case trip and fall, in case there's an accident. Which leads us to insurance. You may have a farm policy, but a farm policy does not necessarily cover guests entering your farm gates. So you need to go back and speak with your insurance agent and find out if you can get a business liability policy, and will that cover overnight guests. That's the first place I would recommend starting. If they say no, they can't do something like that for you, you may need to find an insurance broker who can shop for you and find either a combined policy, farm policy, business liability, or you may be needing to deal with two different insurance companies. Agritourism does make insurance agents really worried, partly because there have not been that many policies written on agritourism to point. And the next webinar that we are going to do is going to be all about insurance and liability and protecting yourself on your farm. So you'll want to attend that one as well. We will have an insurance agent speaking at that one. If you are one of the 25 plus states that has passed an agritourism limited liability law, you will find that there are signs that need to be posted that will protect you. I'm going to show you in the next slide what ours looks like in Oregon. But you may also be in a state that has these equine inherent risk bills or laws, also with signs. That's basically ride at your own risk. Even if you don't allow riding but you have horses, I would suggest posting one of those signs as well. This is what our agritourism sign looks like here in Oregon. We had to agree to letters being a certain size, which means that the sign is very large. I have these posted at the entrance to my farm and on gates where people park. And that will not keep me from being sued if I am negligent, but it does go a long way to warn people who are guests on your farm and new to farm property that they need to be careful. Lodging. Okay, so we've gotten through, you found out that you can actually host guests on your farm, and you found out that you'll probably be able to get insurance for it, but what are you going to actually offer? This is where you want to assess your existing assets. So what are you going to offer for lodging, and what's maybe potential areas for lodging? What were you thinking? What is your vision of what you want to offer people? Do you want to just offer them rough camping, or do you want to offer them 5-star lodging with a hot tub? So the options are camping, glamping, which is the word for glamorous camping. Generally, that would be something like a yurt, or in this image here, I've got a platform tent and also a shepherd's wagon. Those would be considered glamping. Do you have something existing already? Are you going to offer lodging in your house? Are you going to build something? These are some examples, and I will have to say the pictures that I'm showing here, these are all glamping. However, you can imagine what these other ones would be like. The rooms in your farmhouse, a rustic cabin, a guest house. You've got these, the next three here are glamping items. Are you going to allow potentially RVs to come onto your property? Are you thinking of converting a farm building, providing campgrounds, so more than just a few campsites? A mobile home, maybe a tree house. Are you going to potentially thinking of renting your entire farmhouse, maybe a tiny house? And then I put this last one, pet and livestock facilities. There are a number of people who travel with their animals. And we have a number of farms and ranches that do offer facilities for horses, for dogs. And those may be something that you need to build out. The caveat here is that not all of these lodging accommodations are maybe allowed in your area. So it's something that, again, you need to check with your county. And then you have to figure out, where are you going to do this lodging? So where can you or where would you put guest lodging or camping or your guests' pets and horses? And then you have to think about, where are people going to park in relationship to their lodging, and how are they going to get from one place to another? Are they going to be near where your farm activities are? Are you going to put them away from your farm activities? I say the best thing to do is to draw a site map and cite where your barns are, where your livestock are, where your gardens and your fields are, and then where does it make the most sense to put people who are going to be staying overnight? Because you need to think of the infrastructure involved. So if you have people staying on your farm, what are you going to do for water? What are you going to do for sewer? Are you going to do septic? Can you add them to your septic? Are you going to do porta potties? Are you going to do something else? If you need electricity, where is that coming from? Where are you going to park people, and how are they going to get to that parking? And you need road access for emergency vehicles. So do you already have that to your farm? I would assume that you do. If you're allowing RVs, what kind of hookups are you going to do for them? Are you going to do hookups? If you are doing camping, what kind of cooking facilities are going to be available for those people? If you have people in yurts or you have people in your house, are there going to be cooking facilities? Are you going to be cooking yourself for people? Prepared campsites, camp anywhere. Some people do, like campers, they just kind of point them in a direction and say you can camp down near the creek. Stalls, corrals, runs, again, what do those look like? And here I put fencing. So That fencing is not just for keeping your livestock in. It may be for keeping your guests out. So you want to think of what your fencing looks like. Is it safe? Is it climbable? What are the rules around that? In terms of amenities, are you going to do new? Are you going to do remodeled? Is it going to be private, communal, private or shared bathrooms? That's specifically in houses. You should know that Americans tend to be a little pissy about this and like to have their own bathrooms for the most part. Off-grid, are you going to use a composting toilet or a solar shower? I should point out this image here at the top is a composting toilet. This is for the person who has those shepherd's wagons up in Montana. And although you can't quite see it right on the side of the composting toilet outhouse, she's got water that can pour into a dish so that you can wash your face and wash your hands. And then I should point out the picture at the bottom. I don't know if these people all take baths together, if this is like a family that bathes together, stays together. It's kind of funny that there are 3 bathtubs right there in that facility without screens around them. Okay, are you also going to offer internet, Wi-Fi, cell service, TV? This is something to think about. A lot of guests that come out to farm stays like to be unplugged, but they don't want to be totally unplugged in the event that they need access to something. So here on our farm, we have settled on Wi-Fi. There is not cell service on our farm and there's no TV, but people seem to be pretty content as long as they know that they can get onto some Wi-Fi if they have to. Are you going to offer air conditioning or heating? This really depends on where you are located. It also depends on what kind of lodging you're offering. And there is a long list depending on if you're going to do luxury or not. Are you offering a hot tub? Are you offering a helicopter landing? Are you offering maid service? I will have to say that that is few and far between. Most of our hosts are basically offering basic service and nothing more. So you have the guests on your property. You need to think about what else you're going to do with them. Are you going to let them help you with chores? If you have a cattle operation, are you going to allow them to help with cattle drives? If you got horses, are you going to allow them to ride? Do you have other outdoor recreation on your property or nearby? Hunting or fishing on your property or nearby? Bird watching, classes, cheese making, soap making, cooking, weaving, farming, teaching people about plants. It kind of depends on what you like to do and what you can fit into your schedule. And often there are extra fees associated with these things. Now, maybe not helping with chores, and maybe not cattle drives if you're having to move your cattle from pasture to pasture. But the rest of them, you may find that you can charge extra for those. And you want to look around and see what other farms are doing. You also want to see when that part about does it fit into your schedule, what is it costing you to spend time with your guests doing those things? So then you don't want to be giving things away for free if it's costing you time. So now you've figured out what your lodging is going to be. You're going to be 1-star or 5-star. You've got permission to do it. You know how you're going to build it. Who's going to actually do this? You are adding this on top of your farm or your ranch. So if you break out the jobs that are involved with hosting overnight guests, you've got reservation and sales. You've got hosting and touring around your farm. You've got cleaning of the facilities. You've got to keep track of your accounting. You've got to market this product that you have. You've got to keep your property looking good. And you may be cooking, depending on how you've decided to set up the food. So, is that going to be you? Do you have time to do this? Are you going to do all these jobs? Is it going to be a family member that you're going to bring in to help you or do it on their own? Do they have the time and skills? Is this a paid position? I should say, is this a paid position for you if you do this? Are you going to bring in an employee or employees? So that depends on the number of customers that you're going to have to handle. But you do need to look and see what your time is worth to have somebody else do this. And I will say that at the beginning, I did all the jobs here on our farm. until I got halfway through the first summer and realized that I could bring in some high schoolers to help me with the cleaning because my time was more valuable to market what we had to guests. So you want to look at what your time is really worth. And hiring people in the local community is a huge asset to your business because you are impacting your community as well. So you might not be able to start by hiring other people, but you should factor that into your financials when you kind of look at your business plan. And I will say that the startup person who gets this all off the ground may be different than the person who ends up doing this day to day. Okay, you know what you're offering, you know who's going to do it, you know you're allowed to do it. It is not one of those build this and they will come. That is probably one of the worst pieces of marketing advice ever out there. So you do need to have an online presence. And the first place to start is going to be with a farm website. These are not that difficult these days to set up. You can probably do this on your own. There are a number of free websites that you can build. You really only need to have about 5 tabs. Who are you? What are you offering? Where are you located? How do people get in touch with you? And how do people make a reservation? Oh, and photos, because photos sell. So there should be a tab for photos. So you need your website. In terms of social media, you do need to show up there. That's where people may find you to start or may be looking to see what else you do, because you can post easily on social media every day, every 2 days, once a week, what's going on the farm. So that would be Facebook. That might be Instagram. Instagram is photographs, and photographs sell. So if you do nothing else, set up an Instagram account. Could be YouTube. That means you need to figure out how to do videos. Could be Twitter. There are a lot of different ways with social media that if you post in one area, you can have it flow through to another area. You don't need to wait to spend a lot of time doing this, but if there's somebody young in your family who is on Facebook anyway, give this task to them because they'll be able to do it twice as fast as you can probably. So this right here is just one of our farm stays. This is the header of their Facebook page. And you can see that they are marketing farm stay vacations in a heavy duty way. And then this last one is Google Business Listing. You need to set up a Google Business Listing. It is free. Do not let anybody tell you that you need to pay for this. This is where, if you've ever noticed when you search for a business, they show up over on the right-hand side with information about their phone number, their website, how to contact them, hours of operations, and usually some photographs. So look into this when you are starting your farm stay so that you show up if people are searching for you by name. Other online marketing websites that you need to probably be listed with, obviously us. If you if you are an existing farm stay, we hope that you are listed with us now. If not, we would love to have you join and be a member. We are as I mentioned before, a nonprofit trade association. But so that would be the Farm Stay USA website is where you want to show up. But there are other lodging websites, and depending on what you are using for a booking engine, Airbnb, HipCamp, VRBO stands for Vacation Rental by Owner. In those 3 instances, you will be in with a lot of other properties that may not necessarily be farms. But they do have simplified booking engines where you sign up with them. They will take all of your reservations. They will keep your calendar, and you will be hosting your guests. We do, at Farm Stay USA, link through to whoever you have chosen as your reservation agent, so to speak. And so you can use that as your go-to button on your listing with us. There are other places you can sign up where there are experiences. Airbnb has an experience area, so does TripAdvisor. But I would say we are the website for farm stays in the US. So we would love to have you joined up with us. In terms of other kinds of marketing though, you should contact your local news organizations, and maybe not just once. I mean, certainly when you're starting, you can also pitch magazines and travel writers. These are some examples of places where articles have shown up about farm stays. You need to have an angle. And the angle can't just be, we're just starting, but what is the story that you're going to tell about your place? How long has the place been a farm? Or what are you farming? Or what are you going to offer to people? So think of a little bit of an angle so that it's just not, hey, we're opening and we'd love to be covered. Word of mouth is a huge one for farm stays. And I would say that we get the majority of our business word of mouth with guests who've already stayed here. So once you get started up, this will help you grow your business and make sure that your guests that you have, that you let them know that you would love for them to invite their friends to come stay with you as well. Because we're Farm Stay USA, I wanted to at least show you, this is where you could be listed with us. We are a flat rate organization, so anywhere from $140 to $360 a year to be a member. And this is what our brand new homepage looks like. When you're doing a business plan, you always need to figure out who else is your competition. So this is something just to think about, so that when you are in operation and when you are thinking about your marketing, you're thinking about, again, what's the story you can tell that is going to make you stand out from the crowd and rise to the top. And in this instance, I would say that farming comes to mind. But you are competing with other hotels, motels, vacation rentals, Airbnb, outfitters, guides, events, because you're competing for time and money. Parks, restaurants, movie theaters. I put Disneyland here because one of the comments that we have heard, and it's more than once on our farm, we have had kids turn to their parents and say, this is better than Disneyland. So I need you to think about that farming is a story right there. And so you do have a competitive advantage. In terms of financials, okay, let's just look at this. We're gonna look at this relatively quickly. If you were putting together your business plan, you're gonna put together some financials. You wanna look at your startup expenses. What are you doing for, what's it gonna cost you for your lodging, your infrastructure, your bedding, your amenities basically, signage, legal, insurance, marketing, permitting, and fees. Some of those are gonna be one-time expenses. Some of those are gonna be annual expenses, but for the most part, what's it gonna cost you to get this set up? You want to look at what you're going to be able to charge. So in your operating revenue, you want to look at pricing. What assets do you have? Where are you located? What are you going to be offering? What's it going to cost you to offer these things? So look into your area, research, compare prices. What are other people offering in your area? What do you think that people would pay to come stay at your place, buy your product? And then that way you can decide what you're going to charge. I would say if you're starting out, start low. You can always exceed expectations and you can always raise your price. So when you're looking at your revenues, you figured out what you're going to charge per night or what you're going to charge per week, per room. So you want to multiply that by the number of days in the year that you think that you will be open. I would say at the very beginning, keep this simple math formula. Choose one rate. There's not a weekend rate and weekly rate. Just choose one rate. And maybe just look at how many weekends in the first year you think you're going to be open. And come up with what that revenue number looks like. Also, if you think you're going to be selling something through a farm store or activities or classes, come up with an estimate. And you know, in a business plan, they are just estimates if you've never been doing this before. One of the things I do say on revenue is come up with your estimate, divide it in half, see if you can still live with it. And in terms of your expenses, figure on about 20 to 30% of whatever that revenue number is will be your expenses. This does not include the cost, however, of product. If you're selling t-shirts or vegetables. And the easiest way to look at your expenses is to just take the categories off of the federal tax form Schedule E. So what are your merchant services going to be, memberships or dues into different organizations, the food you're going to provide, insurance, housekeeping, maintenance, marketing, payroll, supplies, utilities. And here's an example of what this is going to look like. And this is specifically, so a P&L is a profit and loss statement. So you take your revenues, you subtract your expenses, that gives you your net profit or loss. And on this example, I wanted to show you payback. So your startup cost, say you put $20,000 to get your farm stay up and running. And that first year you brought in revenue of $4,500. Your expenses were $1,350, so you had a net profit of $3,150. Your payback then, you divide that by your net profit for that year, and it looks like it's going to take 6.4 years if your net profit stays exactly the same to pay back your initial startup expense. So based on that, is this a good idea? Do you have that money for startup and the time to invest in starting up this business? Can you balance this with your farming? Is your family on board with this whole idea now that you've shown them the numbers? And how long do you anticipate doing this? So you want to just kind of think about, what would this look like in 5 years? What is this going to look like in 10 years? Historically, B&Bs hosting have a limit of 5 to 7 years. We are starting to see some of our farms backing out after about 10 years. Well, if that payback was 6 years, you need to think about whether that's something that you want to get involved in. And I don't want to discourage you. I just wanted this to be a reality check. So this is your business plan. You've basically just got all the parts to it. And you can use the toolkit now to fill in all the questions that come up in a business plan. Research the parts you don't know. Flesh it out as you go along. This does not need to be a huge document, 8 to 10 pages. You can edit it, change it, update. You probably should with any business plan. Try out different scenarios. Do those financials on a spreadsheet so you can change numbers and see what that looks like. You want to keep in mind, this is not farming. This is the hospitality business. So it's a different business than what you're potentially used to. But what I also want you to know is that you're already a rock star in the eyes of many urbanites. And so maybe it is time to invite them to your farm. These are resources, and this will be available on our website as well. But that farm stay toolkit that I was talking about is actually something that you can print out and fill in. I just gave you the high level of it. Farmstay USA, this is us, farmstayus.com. You can become a member. There is a book out there, Agritourism and Nature Tourism in California. It may be in California, but California has such strict regulations. It's a great resource. There's also an online farmstay manual that was put together by University of Minnesota. And then this last one, this procedures guide and worksite guide is a fabulous checklist for when you are hosting people on your property. If you're somebody in Oregon and you want to start out with that zoning and land use, I would recommend that you talk to Erica Palmer. She's actually a contractor with Travel Oregon. She is also a policy nerd and knows everything about land use in Oregon and what you might and might not be allowed to do. So thank you very much for this part, and I am very open and happy to answer any questions you might have. You can also contact me at any time if you have personal questions that you just want to ask. And I think that's it. So I'm open. Are there any questions? Can I go to this right here? Okay, was I so complete that nobody has any questions at all to ask? I'm gonna give this one more minute while you guys think about it. Otherwise, I will probably end this. I've given you a lot of resources. You know, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna back up so that in case you needed to write down those URLs at all. Can I go backwards? I can't go backwards, sorry. It doesn't want to go. I'm gonna mute me for a sec. Okay, I see there's a question in chat. Am I going to send this out via email? The Farm Stay Toolkit that you see right here on resources, that is an actual paper translation of this webinar with all of the detail plus a little bit more. And you can fill it in at your leisure. So I would say that that is what you're going to want to go for. In terms of the webinar, it is being recorded. So we will add this webinar to the Farmstay USA website under the Farmer's Guide for people who have signed up with us. You will have access to the webinar again if you want to view it again. I hope that answered your question. Okay. If there are no other questions, I think I'm probably going to end this webinar here, but I would like to thank you for staying on and listening. And there will be the second webinar, which will be about insurance and safety on your farm, will be in 2 weeks, same time, with an insurance agent who will be talking and answering questions for you as well. Thank you very much for attending, and I look forward to your participation in all our future webinars. Thank you.